Okay, here we go. We are back for a pre-summer show of leading from home. So it's been a couple of weeks off since each of us had some busy engagements, but we had to do a pre-summer show because I think most importantly, we've had a stressful few months with the whole coronavirus, working from home changes, but most importantly, it's now time to switch off, recharge, and have a great recharging holiday. So most importantly, let's discuss how each of us are I think just reflect upon what's happened in the last few months, how we've changed, how we've learned, and then most importantly, how are we going to reflect upon this to come back stronger, better, and not come back burnt out. So, Phil and Madeleine, welcome back. You look very summery, both of you. Phil's wearing a shirt, not a jumper this time, and Madeleine has ventured outside. So summer is definitely here for all of us.
Summer is here.
Yeah, that's it. We're going to have our summer over the next 3 days in true British fashion, and then it'll be back to sweaters for July and August.
Exactly. Well, I suppose let's leave the great things to the second part of the podcast regarding summer holidays. But let's start with the serious side of things because we can't. I know we're on the break of some second waves around Australia, around UK, Phil. Sweden, I think we had some talk about second waves. Just because the weather has picked up, or people think I'm sick of hearing about it. There's been, people sort of thinking I'm going to just do what I feel like it, and a lot of things we've been talking about has been thrown out the window. So, what's you guys' reflection regarding how to maintain this momentum regarding coping with the coronavirus, rather than people's lot of perception? Oh well, I'm done with thinking about it now, so I'm going to go back to my old habits and. Here we are, back at almost like March and April regarding the restrictions and these type of things almost getting imposed on us. So Phil, what's how are you seeing things at the moment?
I think there's a lot to be gained by looking at what major corporations are doing right now. Most corporations are really continuing their travel restrictions. Most corporations are very, very reluctant to reopen their offices. So whatever the general public might be feeling, I think the people that are running organizations are saying, guys, this is not over yet. And all of the care that we've placed over the last 3 months or so, we need to keep this mindset going forward. And we need to be thinking about this working from home, leading from home, being our new normal for at least the next 6 months or so.
And Madeleine, what's the current restrictions regarding at Nordea in terms of when can people start coming back to the office, and has anything changed since, even though it's summertime, has anything changed from your teams and your end regarding how to cope with this and also planning ahead?
I think it's exactly what Phil is saying. People are getting tired of this. People want change, but I don't see anything big changing right now in terms of communication from our organization. It remains the same, and we are following the authorities' recommendations. And right now, there is, of course, there is a plan about how could we come back to the offices after vacation, but we still need to follow closely what happens during the summer, and so there is absolutely no communication whatsoever to come back at the office right now.
Yeah, that's the same. We have a lot of clients like Google and some of the big ones, and I asked them, "What's your policy coming back?" And they're not even talking about until the end of this year. So I say nothing changes because it's warmer and sunny and people feel more relaxed or sick of it, and that's a thing that changes. This thing is going to stay with us, and I think we've got to cope with it, learn from it, and that's what we're trying to teach in these webinars, to lead from home and to embrace change. And Phil, I know you talked about this in your in a presentation you gave to us at the Business Architecture Guild of Europe about change, and you had the change cycle. Could you just, and I'll put a link to that for those people who want to know more about your session, can you just reflect upon that change cycle? Because I think that's really relevant to us here with the coronavirus, that we need to learn new habits and new strategies because this virus won't go away. Can you just sort of touch upon that, how it relates to us in today's environment about maintaining change and coping with change?
Yeah, thanks, Shaun. I mean, I think one of the key things that we've learned about change is it's not a linear process. That from where we are to where we need to go, there is this dip, which is called the learning curve. And, you know, if you think about this whole leading from home situation, we've been going through a learning curve. Yeah. And that learning curve is where you get frustrated. You know, it's quite easy for people to think, oh, you know, the change cycle, it starts with the shock and the denial. It's not going to happen to us. It's not going, you know, and if you think about, you know, what happened here in the UK, you know, you could see the devastation of COVID in Italy and Spain, and certain people saying, well, that's the foreigners. It's not going to happen to us in the UK, you know, and that denial of the change curve was quite catastrophic in the UK. That failure to acknowledge. But as I say, it's then followed by frustration, and you know, because you know the new ways of working don't happen overnight. And I think for all of us as leaders, you know, we need to be prepared to accept that as people learn new ways of leading, learn new ways of working from home and leading from home, that we will make mistakes. Yeah. But that's called learning, and that's okay, so long as we have a mindset as a leader that says, okay, it happened. What have we learned from this? How do we ensure that it doesn't happen again moving forward? And because it is just the biggest experiment, people keep calling this an experiment, but it is the single biggest experiment that's happened in the world for working and leading from home. There's a load of stuff out there to actually read about. Well, what's working in this country? What's working in this corporation? What's working in this community? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is where people have got to realize that, you know, when I talk to some people, our friends and also other colleagues about, you know, reflecting upon, you know, how things change for you in your workplace. There's, some of us just want to come back to work and have a fig or have a coffee. You think like, you know, that's the worst thing you can do in terms of this virus has not even close to gone away, and start accepting that this virtual remote learning is here to stay. So as you say, start learning about what techniques can I actually improve, how to be a better remote virtual working colleague, because as I say, and you can't just say, oh, I'm going to wait for the vaccine, because you say, even within that, you know, there's such an unknown about ahead. So I think as you've been talking about, trying to reflect it as well as improve about what has worked so far in the experiment, and then what can be in place permanently, because regardless of a virus, and I think back to the webinar, one of our first webinars, Phil, when we talked about, you know, we've had the volcano ash when, you know, travel got restricted, and we had 9/11. So we're going to have more and more of these crises and virus, and hopefully not viruses, but it's probably going to happen. So the better we prepared for it by these virtual working from home type of things, the better we go through this change cycle. Is that correct? Or what's your reflection upon you know, the long-term impacts of change and working from home?
It's interesting you talk about it. I'm doing some work, and I'm actually doing a presentation next week with another professor, and we talk about exponential change. And you know, the changes that we're experiencing now are not linear. You know, and I think recognizing that change and being able to manage change and deal with a changing situation is actually one of those new leadership behaviors. You know, waiting for things to settle down, which is, you know, I hear time and time again, just wait for things to settle down. Forget it. They're never going to settle down. Lead with what you've got, because, and actually that's the new mindset. That's the new mantra. Lead with what you've got. It's good enough. Yeah.
Yeah, and now with the sort of reflecting upon how people think about, you know, going back to work after the holidays, and, you know, what's changed for the better. A lot of feedback I'm getting is people think this is great, this flexible working, you know, working from home, back more time to I'm more efficient, I don't have as many meetings, I have more of a work-life balance. So on the positive side, people are actually embracing. You said, I hope that when we go back to normal, which what normal is, that I can have this 3 days from home and you know, a couple of days in the office. So already there's the other end of the people who are shifting, saying, hey, these experiments are actually positively embracing, that I'm embracing, which is benefiting the company and myself. So Madeleine, are you seeing that type of feedback from your teams regarding, I know you have your meetings about what's working with your team, what's not working. What's the pulse of your teams regarding what they want to see continuing after the summertime?
Yeah, and I think that you're spot on there, Shaun. That is exactly the kind of feedback that I'm getting, that we're discovering a new way of work. And I think that when you feel saying lead with what you get, what you have, I think that's essential because it has been, for us, we discovered that if you have a strong core team, you can have volcanic eruptions, you could have COVID hitting us, you could have whatever, but ensure creating that strong core team, and then just don't bother about the things that you can't affect, because it just takes a lot of energy. It steals the energy from you. So focus on your small core team, and then I think as my manager said quite wisely, I mean, as long as people keep on delivering, as long as people find new ways of working, it doesn't matter where you are working from. You can sit, if that suits you, you can sit more or less wherever you want. And I think what we talked about previously in this podcast was also that the new ways of working will probably include having the physical workplace as a place for social meetings rather than the productive ones, and the productivity will probably take place in the home office. And my guess is that if we would come back everybody to the same environment as we've been to previously, to these open space offices, we would be astounded of how could you ever concentrate in this noise? How is that even possible? Because what I've seen, and when we have reflected in my team, is that the productivity has gone through the roof. We want, of course, to keep the best of everything. So in that, we want to create a new way of work when we can come back to the offices.
Yeah. And exactly. And Phil, I know in your trainings, I remember you often keep on saying to us that, if just because you have a 1 hour meeting scheduled, it doesn't mean you need to have that 1 hour. Just in 20 minutes, what's the agenda, and have, make it shorter or make it be more efficient. And I think this, remote working, virtual meetings that you have, particularly when they're in smaller groups, I'm finding from my side of things, they're shorter meetings. Anything else to say? No, good, finish, bang, as opposed to using it the full hour just because it's booked in the calendar. So is there any sort of, now with people now going through the change curve, knowing to have to embrace how to work better and work better in remote learning, what are some quick tips, Phil, for them to improve their teams as well as their own leadership of permanently being a better virtual colleague or leader?
Well, I'm probably going to just go straight back and challenge what you just said. That's going to be
my
my
job.
start
You're the
point.
expert on this, so.
No, because you're absolutely right. It's if you compare your virtual meetings with your face-to-face meetings, as you quite rightly said, you say, well, we had an hour booked, but 20 minutes in, we're done. Everything we needed to cover, we're done. And I remember facilitating my first virtual conference for a team 20 years or so ago. These guys had always met face-to-face in person, and the workshop had taken 2 days. And they'd actually booked me for 2 days to facilitate their workshop for the 2 days they had. And we'd finished it in 4 hours. Okay, we finished it in 4 hours, and so we agreed that we would not work the second day, but we asked ourselves the question. We reflected in the second half of the day. Well, what happened? And of course, what happened was they didn't talk about all the things that they normally talked about when they were face to face. They didn't talk about their wives, their husbands, their children, their holidays, their hobbies, their social life. And of course, there's the paradox. That community, it often gets sacrificed for efficiency. So as leaders, whilst it's brilliant that we can actually get an hour's worth of content covered in 20 minutes, just remember that if you're not creating time for the community, the social chit chat in that hour that you had in the past, you'll have to create a time for it somewhere else. And you might just choose. You might just say, like a lot of people, we'll call it the virtual coffee, we'll call it the Friday fun day, we'll call it the virtual happy hour. Call it what you like, but just recognize that efficiency is nearly always at a price, but the hidden price of we didn't catch up on being humans again.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and this is where I'm glad that we're using this opportunity today to reflect upon what we've discussed in the past few months, because, as I say, that now we're becoming more efficient and experts in the digital Zooms or Googles or Microsoft Teams, I'll be interested to hear if the Zoom coffees or beers are actually still taking place, because I know from my side of things, when we discussed it, it was like people are like, oh, let's do a Zoom beer. And then I haven't heard from them too much about it. And that's to say, like, talk about change, that should be the community and the people side of things should be in place as much as the efficiency of the video and meet. So Madeleine, you're the expert in the Zoom coffees for your teams. Has that become a permanent feature now with your teams regarding catch-ups, and how are you taking that human element into your teams?
Yeah, actually, we had a virtual after work yesterday, which was, we had so much fun.
Yeah.
And what we discussed, we had a reflection round this week, what we want to keep and what we learned during these months, and what we want to keep, regardless of what happens in the autumn. And one of these things, they are the virtual coffees that we have. They're regular based, but and it's also that if you have the time, if you feel for it, you show up. It's not mandatory, but it's like a normal coffee break at the office. The good side of this is that even if you're not at the office, you can be present here, and you're part of the team, and you can still be in these discussions. Some is work related, most is not, and that is something that all of us wants to keep going forward, regardless of what happens in the autumn.
Yeah. So if we start sort of now approaching almost, we are over here in Sweden hitting summertime now, what could be some ways, thinking big picture in terms of not just work about, but also you as a person, because a lot of people have said during COVID that people think about their, their fitness and their health and the big picture. What's some reflections that you guys can recommend, both personally as well as to other people, about what they've learned from the last few months, as well as how can they change for the better after this? Because I say the stress isn't going to go away with the COVID. These changes regarding travel and restrictions and how we work are going to create a lot of uncertainty for people. How can people go away and think about how to improve? What's some tips that both of you can give that you can do yourself?
I think most of all to embrace the good things that have come out of this, to focus on that and not let the negativity take over, because it's hard to get, it's easy to get drawn into that. The good things, as you mentioned before, is that many of us have gotten a better work-life balance, and that you don't have to commute. You can use that time to learn things, to exercise, to have dinner with your kids. And those are things that most of us want to keep. And I think focusing on that, the flip side here is, as you also previously mentioned, is that we are all the time connected. So I want to direct that question to you, Phil, and to ask you for advice for my coming summer holiday. How can I turn zoom out and just stop working in a more efficient way when I'm always on?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've heard this a few times. Are we going to actually be on holiday? Because what's the difference between what you're doing next week compared to what you're doing today? Well, I think there are a couple of things. So first of all, have a negotiation with the rest of the family. Can you actually unplug the Wi-Fi?
I'm sorry for laughing, but I think that's a no in my family, honestly. So how do you cope with that?
My kids would hate me if I did that.
Yes, I was just about to say.
But it's very interesting, isn't it? What there you are sitting in 30-degree, centigrade, beautiful blue skies. Where there is nowhere better in the world than to be in your back garden and to be in the countryside of Sweden right now. You don't need Wi-Fi. No. You don't need your devices. Exactly. So I would absolutely, temporarily, if not permanently, make sure that this fiendish thing isn't constantly nudging you, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Set clear expectations. I think that's the other thing. So, set the expectation amongst your colleagues, amongst your peers, and certainly with your supervisor that you're on holiday. I think if, as a leader, I think, you know, role model the behavior you want to see in your reports as well, because you know, it's in your interest. If you're just thinking quite selfishly as a business person, it is absolutely in your interest that your people come back refreshed.
Yep.
You know, there is a commercial benefit from them going away and recharging their batteries, but they're most likely to do it if they see that behavior from you, the leader, because if all they see from you, the leader, whilst you're on holiday, is constantly responding to emails, dialing into the occasional call, blah, 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 then you have now set the tone for them when they're on holiday.
Yep.
They won't be refreshed, you're not refreshed. And, you know, Shaun's point right at the top of the session, you know, how do we have that energy and momentum to see us through the inevitable second wave that's going to come through all of our countries, that continued working from home environment, you know, adapting those new ways of working and the next changes. That's what I'd try and recommend for you, Madeleine.
Thank you, Phil. I appreciate it, and that's wise words. You're absolutely right in the role model words. I do agree with that, and I think that's words for all of us leaders to consider and think about. It's not only about us, but it's also about our teams. And can we role model the behavior and show how we lead the way? That will help and benefit our teams.
Okay. You hear that noise, guys?
Yes, I do.
I do.
It's not a beer. It's actually a sparkling orange drink. But I think as we now finish up into the last part of the webinar about us leading from that, this is the time to, you know, to encourage people to switch off. And that means that, you know, as I'm doing now, switch your habits to, like, you know, now it's summertime. This to me is summertime, and I start drinking this stuff, and my kids also love it. In terms of, this reminds you of summer. It means you not to work. You bring out your on your Fridays, you bring out your summer drinks, you bring out your Aperols, and Madeleine's favorite, whatever you want to have, gin and tonics. You have your rhubarb tonics for those people who've got that in the shelves. So I think
Shaun, I just want to check, did you and Madeleine do a deal with them, or did you buy some shares in the company before you started promoting this rhubarb gin on that?
Haven't you seen at the bottom, it has,
I think we should have.
Proudly created by Madeleine and Shaun. So yeah, we created this stuff. This is our second job.
At least we're good at testing it.
S&M, I wish. Trust me, the amount of stuff that I've stocked up for the summertime for this. Wish I had bought shares, but yeah, no, seriously, I think this is where you know, having the, as you say, the mindset, Phil, and also us leading from not just from work, but also for the family. That, you know, my kids are already looking forward to on Fridays when I come home. Up, boys, let's have a pub time. Let's have some of this drink, and so make them also feel that it's summertime, because for them, they've also gone through a lot of stress in terms of, you know, Papa's always on the phone at home and he's always busy. And so it's important for us as, you know, as parents, and also as role models to show that we are switched off, so they feel relaxed and don't get burnt out and moody after the break, because yeah, it's tough for them as well. So I think showing, you know, changing your habits, doing different things that you do just because you work from home, rather than, as you say, always having your phone next to you throughout the holidays. You're not going to recharge. You're going to come back even more exhausted. So what are you guys doing, speaking of then switching off and for the holidays? How are you going to recharge the batteries? Madeleine, you already halfway there?
Yes, actually, today is my last working day, and tomorrow I'm off for a Scandinavian 5 weeks of summer holiday.
That's what I call a proper holiday. 5 weeks, recharge, switch off. All those
it is.
Do it.
So the plan is to jump a lot of trampoline with my kids, being here with them. To your point, Shaun, when I work, I work. When I'm with my kids, I try to be present with my kids and not focus on anything else. So eat a lot of ice cream that's on the plate as well. Discover new flavors of ice cream, count mosquito bites together, just spending time with my family.
And that's how it should be. Family time, indulge, switch off. Phil, how are you going to indulge and switch off and break out over the summer holidays?
Well, definitely some walking. So we're going to take a break. Stay in the UK, of course, but walk. Enjoy the countryside, the fantastic countryside that's around us. But I'm going to be also taking up a tip from Greg Orme. because in fact, thanks to the book, I was chatting to him earlier today, and he was just reminding me of the joy of questions and just going out and meeting people and just getting to know something more about them. So whilst I'm on this break, I'm just going to get curious and just try to learn a little bit more about, you know, why people are like they are and how they do things the way they do. And, you know, that'll include neighbors, that'll include, you know, socially distant people that we meet when we're out walking responsibly, but just be curious. And I'm going to just take that habit into my holiday.
I think it's a super tip, I suppose, or a summer motto for people to take away from: be curious, because as I say, people are always too busy to talk to people or strangers, or like especially here in Sweden, Madeleine, you know, how people like sort of head down when you walk past strangers. But I think we've had such a difficult time. Be curious, have fun, be kind to people. They're the top tips. And as Madeleine says, explore, indulge, and have fun. That's the most important thing. That this hasn't been fun for anybody, and be responsible. Don't stick to the rules that we're trying to overcome. But as I say, just break away and come back recharged. And speaking of reading, Phil and Madeleine, I have some. This is my holiday. Talk about family time. I'm going to read how to control my kids a bit better, because now they're getting more opinionated and stronger. I need to be, I'd say, smarter dad. So I'm going to be looking at no work and just trying to improve now a better dad. So raising boys, and then talk about fitness and health. I'm trying to be a better athlete on my cycling. So the Champions of Mine, I'm going to read on the beach. And then I always like to balance in terms of talk about being curious, Phil. There's a book, handbook called the Entrepreneurs, which Monocle magazine have put out, which is basically the tools to fix, secure, and refocus your business. So I think these type of things are like, you know, sharpen your act, get clear directions, basically, you know, creativity, entrepreneurial spirit, mindset. So anything, I'll be thinking everything except for work. So as far as removed as possible, but talking about family, health, and how to improve. So there's some other tips that we can give to people in terms of pick things you don't normally read to really, as you know, you talk about, Phil, the creativity, bring that out, do things which you don't normally do, and don't feel guilty. Like Madeleine says, eat lots of ice cream. Don't feel like, oh, I'm going to put on weight. This is the time to just let your hair down, have fun. Soon we'll be having some cold beers, Phil, like which we've been talking about on a Friday. Madeleine will be having her gin and tonics and rhubarb, which I'll be doing the weekend. So everybody, please have some fun. We switch off, because the best thing you can do for you, your colleagues, your family is to recharge those batteries, because as I said, it's going to be a tough autumn going through change. As Phil always says, that, you know, you have to go to the bottom through the curves. It's not going to go. There's no easy way through it. And the better you become improving yourself, recharging yourself, the better it'll be for everybody. So any final words? Have an excellent holiday for me. But Phil, Madeleine?
I'm just going to say to have a great holiday, guys. Very nice to spend some time with you, and look forward to seeing you fully recharged, you know, in the autumn time, sort of September.
Awesome.
Likewise, it has been a pleasure, and I'm looking very much forward to coming back and discussing and analyzing all the new habits that we've learned, and seeing what happens in the autumn.
Fantastic. Awesome. Have a nice one, guys. Cheers.
You too. Cheers. Bye.